All right, Christopher. Christopher, where are you from originally?
I'm from Washington. I spent most of my life in Clallam, which is a district. There's about 4 of them in Washington. Originally, I'm from Port Angeles, which is literally on the border to Canada. Canada is only 3 miles across. So,
what was your childhood like?
Huh?
What was your childhood like?
I moved a lot. Unfortunately, I also got to know what it's like for family to turn their back on you and not care, no matter what kind of situation you're in. I mean, I was 13 when I figured that out, due to my family members kicking me out of my grandparents' house. And right after my dad had just finished buying all my school supplies. So that was fun for like 6 months of my life after that, just to find a stable housing. Then me and my best friend just recently, about a year ago, left Washington because we got tired of watching our friends drop and die from all the hard drugs because there was horse tranquilizer being added to it. It got to the point where you couldn't even go up and trust to buy weed from somebody because there was people dropping from horse tranquilizer in the weed because they were adding it as a boosting substance, as what they would like to say, to try and increase the high. So far during our travels, we haven't been able to find one place to stay for more than 24 hours, just like how we were pretty much living in Washington. I've been homeless for 2 years. Haven't been able to get my unemployment, and I've been working since I was 16.
Back to your childhood, like any abuse, anything crazy going on when you were young?
My dad was okay. My grandfather is World War I and World War II vet. So even with 15% of his heart, and I weighed about 230 pounds at the time, he could pick me up and throw me across the room, and he did it by my throat and with one arm. Was not a fun experience to get thrown across an entire house. I mean, I was being a dipshit, and when I get stressed, I usually eat a whole lot. I try and keep my hunger under control, but it gets hard because all I want to do is eat everything, whether it's edible or not. I have
the anxiety.
Part of it's from the anxiety, part of it's from abandonment issues, because at that same time when my grandparents had my aunts and uncles kick us out of their house, my mom disappeared for 8 months, and my dad went through a whole mental breakdown. So I was the only one keeping us together the entire time for 2 years. I had to do that. Mentally wake up until we're making it to my dad and to myself, because my mother wasn't in the picture. Though I can't really say my mother's always been there in the picture. She has back rat syndrome, and not the great kind. She has the severe kind where she buries things, and her mentality from the age of 10 till they divorced when I was 22, I watched it go straight down the shithole. And I do mean straight down the shithole. We took out 35 tons of trash out of the ground and then have to put in 350 yards of dirt just to replace it. Because it was filled with nothing, and I mean nothing but trash. Everything from something that might be decomposable to plastic to garbage bags acting as protection layers to branches to literal electrical equipment to power supplies to power cords to just random junk that was just being buried. Some of it she held outside of the ground. She classified as art supplies, even though they were nothing but trash. I mean, to the common person, it was pretty much trash. And my dad couldn't handle having that around anymore because it was literally dropping the house property.
Is that like a form of hoarding?
Yes. Pack rat syndrome is the severe version of hoarding. I mean, you know of hoarders who can fill up their entire houses. Pack rat means they will bury it just to keep it. whether it's in the walls, whether it's in the floor, whether it's in the ground, or under the house or in the attic. And that wasn't the only house we had to clean out. My mom actually had her own house that was filled from the top to the floor. There was only 3 paths, one to the bathroom, one to the kitchen, and one to the backyard. Everywhere else, and I'm talking about a 1-foot space to be able to walk through. And we're talking about a space that's kind of like this, just filled from the floor to the top. Just absolutely nothing but trashed electronics. And she just held on to it because her mind said, we'll need it later. And unfortunately, my mom's also from a time period that her parents had just gotten out of the boom age from the Great Depression, because my grandfather was like 95 when he died. My mom's like 62 now. No, 68. Yeah, she would be 68. And I'm the youngest out of 7.
It's a little bit young for the Depression.
Yeah.
I mean, her parents were probably the ones that went through that.
Yeah, my mom and my dad are the ones who ended up having to deal with part of that. My dad's like 58 now.
So back to where you were moving. You moved from Washington to get away from all the people that were dying from the drugs, the hard drugs.
We just couldn't take it anymore. One of our really close friends that loved making any kind of candy joke into a sexual joke literally would sit there, set up candies next to him just so it would literally read as a sexual joke. But it would always be hilarious. Like, he would put a Babe Ruth next to a nut bar. So you nutting off to Babe Ruth? That's what he would usually like to say. Great guy at Magic. I play it. I love card games. But he was one of those people who had a really bright future, but he keeled over at 18 because of the stuff. He got hooked onto it when he was 16. Literally couldn't live his life without it.
This was fentanyl, or it was the horse tranquilizer?
It was fentanyl that he was buying. Unfortunately, one of the places he went to go get it had already mixed it in the horse tranquilizer. How they did that, I don't know, but he literally tried from what I was told from people who'd seen him, he had taken 3 puffs, went to go across the street to go get something to drink, and died right in the road. Literally just collapsed right in the road. Just dead. And that was our 15th friend that it happened to, and we just couldn't be there without having all those horrible memories, without feeling depressed. I was literally smoking 2 pounds of weed a month just from depression, just to make myself eat. Because I was so stressed, I couldn't eat, even though I have a hunger issue.
So you're a pot smoker.
Yeah, I'm a weed connoisseur. I know everything from the grow to the production to the sale. I know all of it, all the way down to the chemical makeup of what you need into your soil, the things you want to add to your soil. If you don't want it to be one way or you don't want it to come out another, I know how to do it. I know how to make dense nugs. I know how to make fluffy nugs. I know how to grow outdoor, and I know how to grow indoor with controlled light. I know what kind of weather they like. I know what, even down to the strain of the seeds, what they would like. Whether it's a 3-month grow or it might be an 8-month grow. I know the whole process from beginning to end.
Where did you learn all that?
I learned that at the age of 16 when I was trying to decide on what drugs I really wanted to try. Due to my ADHD, I found out there's probably some drugs I don't want to touch, and I found out in a very bad experience what one of those can do. That's why I don't touch them anymore. I found out
So you smoke pot instead?
Yeah, I found out that the fun drugs make me very angry and not a kind person, I guess is the best way to put it. It's like having a 180 to your whole personality.
Kind of like your grandfather.
Yeah. Kind of how like my grandfather had his PTSD issues, and I had to work with them as a caretaker, helping my mom take care of them. So I had to not only help them shower, I had to help them get all their things changed, whether it was the catheter or not. Trust me, I have seen things I never wanted to see at a young age, and learned a lot of things I didn't want to know because my brother fortunately fell into the game, and I learned what it does to him. And I just had a really bad time seeing a lot of stuff happen. And when we started getting harassed every 3 hours, if we wanted white, whether we wanted shatter, whether we wanted blues, every 3 hours. And we couldn't even stay in one spot for 24 hours without the cops showing up and going, hey, you gotta move out of city limits. And then we get out of city limits only to have the state troopers go, hey, you can't be here, go back into city. And we did that for literally a year, moving around constantly, day in, day out, having to find a new spot, hoping that we'll get left alone for at least 24 hours, maybe longer, hoping, only for it to not happen. Even this trip, it's just been one hassle after another. I mean, they did it so they could have a vacation. I did it so I could get some mental release from being around all that stress.
Mm-hmm. How much pot are you smoking now?
Since leaving Washington, I have found out how much society is kind of similar. I've actually ended up increasing on my smoking because normally I don't only smoke 2 pounds of weed. But lately I've been smoking, let's see, in the last month, I've smoked 3 pounds of flour and about 52 grams of wax, which is a lot. Normally somebody only smokes maybe a gram a week. I'm smoking that almost a day. And I'm mainly just running off of what I had in savings, and that's about dry now.
What's going to happen when you run out?
I'm still fighting for my unemployment. If I don't got that, I at least have my EBT and just do what I always do, make it work. Whether I gotta find some way to exchange stuff for cash, like I did in Oregon. I had to literally go out and collect cans, plastic bottles, and glass just so I could afford my smokes and get my pot. Even though we had people coming by where we were at dropping off weed, I started off with about 7 pounds a week. That 7 pounds did not last because I smoked that plus more, which is a lot more than normal people smoke. And that's just so I can keep my mentality in the right track because I have ADHD severely. I've had it since I was 3.
You're not addicted to pot, or are you?
Part of me is probably addicted to it because it's the only way I can get sleep now. Otherwise, I lay there awake all night. I just feel like all I got the next morning was just rest. Like all I did was get a 20-minute nap. That's literally it. And then I pushed myself through the rest of the day without trying to snap at somebody, without trying to let any of the stuff just build up. But unfortunately, that isn't always successful. It's really hard to try and let it release, but at the same time, when it builds up, it just builds up. And I smoke a lot of pot just so I can keep myself under control.
Are there any downsides to being such a habitual pot smoker?
Downsides are definitely you're constantly hungry. You got cotton mouth like a motherfucker all the time. Excuse my language. Like I said, irritation from lack of sleep. It definitely gets to you. Downsides for the most part is when you're out, all you want is that next hit. All you're doing is hoping for that next hit, just to try and make the better look like it's prettier, because otherwise it just goes gray. The whole world just gets a dark tone. It's not as bright, it's not as vibrant, the sounds aren't the same. It's like now your brain's running on normal filter and you're like, where are all the great happy sounds that I was used to getting.
So you're probably under the influence of pot 24 hours a day?
Easily. I don't like going any more than 2 hours without pot. I seriously don't go any more than 2 hours without pot. I have to smoke it. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I have to. It's the only way I can deal with people. I have antisocial disorder at times. So being in a place where there's over 4 million people, my anxiety is really up. Not as bad as my best friend, but definitely up there. I just try and make it work with people. It's not always easy to do, because having ADHD makes communication harder. Because our brains literally run at 1,000 times the speed of most people.
How old are you?
I just turned 28 yesterday.
28. Happy birthday.
Yeah, I've been smoking pot now for 11 years straight.
Do you think you'll stay in this lifestyle where you're just smoking pot constantly and living on the streets the rest of your life?
I got stuck on the streets because I had a mental breakdown, and then I didn't realize in my contract I had a way to pause my work for a while. But during my whole mental breakdown, I was trying to get a therapist, and fortunately that just ruined my job. So I lost that, and then I've been trying to get employment for literally the last 2 years. I mean, I don't like not having work. I'm a workaholic. And for the last 2 years, I've had anxiety from not being able to work. I mean, I'd literally walk out, spend 6 hours a day just to go look for even simple work, from going to door, going, hey, can I do this for you? Hey, can I do this for you? Just for a little bit of money, just so I can get through the day or get something to eat. Because once CBT runs out, that's it. And I only got $160 to try and live off of a whole month. And unfortunately, in Washington, that would be about 10 days worth of food. Out here, I'm looking, if I'm lucky, maybe 6, just what the prices are. So
You need a new hustle.
yeah, I have to hustle. It's the only way I can stay alive. Otherwise, I'm starving myself to death. Or end up like what I did yesterday, trying to look for places where I can get free food and end up showing up late. So I literally went all night last night without food. I haven't eaten in probably 20 hours.
Well, I'm going to pay you for doing this, so you'll...
Yeah, that's why when the
You can
dude
grab
said
lunch.
I'd probably get some money for coming in here, I was like, I need food. Sounds good to me.
Nice
That's
to
a
see.
hot meal.
Nice to see my money going towards food for a change.
I mean, that's hot meal to me. That's life. And I'm a foodie, so to me, food is pleasure. So being constantly hungry, constantly thirsty, constantly addicted to something that I want to taste, because I actually enjoy the taste of weed. That's why I like smoking it. It's got a great flavor. Every type of weed has a different flavor, whether it's sour diesel, Gorilla Glue, whether it's 1 through 5, whether it's Purple Nurple, White Kush, Snow White, whether it's, even Marlins. I would love any of that just for a different flavor. Because I'm a weed connoisseur. I'm addicted to this stuff. I'm probably not going to stop either.
What is the best pot you've ever smoked?
The best one I've probably ever smoked was a brand made from Snoop Dogg. I think it was Snoop. I think it was called that. I also have another one that I like, which is Space Cookies. Just because it actually tastes like a sugar cookie when you smoke it, which is the weirdest thing to taste when you're smoking, but at the same time makes you go, Now I want a peanut butter cookie with jelly in between. And the food ideas you can get on weed are fantastic, because you can make even the cheapest of cheap meals into something that's decent taste. I mean, I used to take macaroni, the instant noodles, and literally an instant pack of mashed potatoes and a can of chicken. That's a decent meal on its own. Because at least it's gonna stick to your gut. It's at least gonna make you feel full for a little while, even though it's not really what it's doing. It's at least masking whatever you feel, which is what a lot of people do when they're smoking whatever medication they're on. That's what I'm used to saying, because...
You should get a job growing or as a broker or something.
Oh, I did. I worked as a bud tender for 2 years. I also worked as a handyman for 8. I was a masseuse for 6. And yeah, my life has been up and down. I originally spent most of my life being a cybersecurity to video game programmer, because at the time I saw a massive industry in it. And fortunately, I started listening to all my teachers and my parents saying, hey, it's not going to be a real moneymaker. It's not going to be a real moneymaker. Well, guess what? You guys were wrong. It's a real freaking moneymaker now. It's not just cybersecurity. And life's a struggle. No matter where you go. I mean, hell, I'm from Washington. I thought I would be at least a little bit more decent, but...
If you had your life to live all over again, what would you have done differently?
If I could have done this all over again, what would I have done differently? Figured out all my mental problems probably sooner, because I didn't know I have RSD, which is rejection sensitivity disorder. So
what is that?
It makes that when I like somebody, I can't stand any kind of rejection or contradiction from them. And I actually have to like the person for it to affect me. Otherwise, if it's a normal person yelling at me, I'd be like, I don't care. But if it's from that person, I just care a whole lot. And I've physically cried over it, just from the whole mental disease. I've literally had to pull over my car because I could not physically see, even though I did not feel like it was that bad, but because my RSD felt that was that such level of rejection. All I could do was have water tears going down. I physically could not drive. I had to turn over, park, just to be able to spend half an hour just crying until it's over. And sometimes it just triggers without reason, without warning. There's no signs to it when it goes off. It just happens. It's like having an emotional breakdown without having any control. And RSD really sucks because I have lost over 40 relationships. I'm bi. I have dated both male and women. And my RSD has literally burnt them all to the ground. I literally feel like I have to be alone in order to be happy.
That'll make you smoke pot?
Yeah, that's originally why I started smoking pot, was because I was so depressed I couldn't stand being around people. Because all I saw was a relationship that I couldn't have. Because my RSD literally makes it impossible. I have physically tried. The longest time I've ever had somebody in a relationship was literally 6 months. Normally they only last 2 weeks. And it sucks because I actually tried to be with those people. But my RSD kept getting to the point where I physically start to hear voices, and it will mimic that person's voice. If I'm in the same room, I'll start hearing stuff that's not even coming out of their mouth, but it's my RSD trying to tell me what it wants me to think, how I should react. And unfortunately, I didn't even figure out that I had RSD until I was 26. And that was after looking at my own medical paperwork finally, because I was just like, I've been having this stuff all the time. I've never bothered to actually read it, because I just hand it to one doctor after another because my mind doesn't think about it. I don't want to know what all my problems are. But after reading it, I found out that a lot of my life issues could have gone majorly different. Like, I probably could have gotten into the video game design academy that's in Seattle with my $200,000 grant. if I hadn't let my RSD decide that I wasn't worth going there.
And Christopher, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
The most important lesson I've learned in life is keep a smile on your face, push forward, and always pass on to another person what you've at least received, so that way it can be passed on to the next. So that way you're not just the only one. You're always helping the next person. You're always moving forward. There is no looking back, because looking back there's no point. It's in the past. All you can do is push forward, because tomorrow's a new day. Just because today is the way it is doesn't mean tomorrow will be. And that's the correct mindset you have to have. Otherwise, you're just going to fall into a spin down cycle and never crawl yourself out. Or you'll end up like I did 6 years ago, so far in a deep rabbit hole that you don't want to see light. And it just gets bad from there.
All right. Christopher, thank you so much for sharing your story. Wish you lots of luck here in Skid Row. Try to get out of here as fast as you can.
It's what we're hoping to get out of here tomorrow. Hopefully we don't run into another complication like we did last time where our train gets delayed.